Well, hello everyone. This is Erin from the WRLA and we are now live. Welcome to today's Teachable Tuesday webinar on restoring your customers' confidence. This is going to be a great webinar where you will leave with some great tools on how to drive sales. For those who have attended our previous webinars, you will notice we have a different introductory page. This is the first webinar we're introducing the concept of sponsorship. So thank you to Greg Gardinis, National Director of Sales and Marketing, for being the first to not only sponsor this webinar, but also produce a discount for everyone attending today. Westman is providing a 5% discount off Edco products, which is their steel roof shingles, siding, and rainwear. Their offer is valid from today until July 3rd. All you have to do when you order is just use promo code WRLA. Again, thank you, Westman and Greg. Greg sits on our GR committee and is always available to provide industry information. So with that, we appreciate you at the WRLA. If anyone is interested in sponsoring any of our monthly webinars, please get in contact with myself or Jess here at the office. Okay, now a little history about Westman. WGI Westman Group started in 1976 with a single mill and a vision focused on customer service and employee well-being. Russ Edwards built Westman Group into one of Canada's largest users of raw steel and one of Manitoba's largest manufacturers. WGI Group of companies is comprised of the following companies: Armtech, Artspan, Balin, Convey All Industries Incorporated, Meridian Manufacturing Group, U-Build Steel Buildings, and Westman Steel Industries. Today, they employ over 2,200 individuals in 77 locations across Canada and the United States. Westman continues to grow, ultimately allowing employees to realize their full potential as they steer WGI to new heights. For over 36 years, Westman Steel has answered the call of customer demands by pursuing high-tech and innovative designs for their steel products. Always setting superior goals, they achieve high standards for both employees and the products they manufacture and distribute. Westman diligently works with their suppliers to maintain quality control and achieve the ultimate product diversity within 3 core industry segments: agriculture, commercial, and residential. Westman Steel leads the way for steel manufacturing by setting and securing their place in history by setting new standards for manufacturing and distributing products that create statements in steel for all agricultural, commercial, and residential applications. Okay, moving on. We just wanted again to say thank you to Westman for sponsoring today's webinar. Now on to business. Let's gain some tools to help restore customer confidence. As mentioned, I'm Erin. I'm the Member Services and Solutions Manager. And with me is Jess, who is your Trade Show and Events Manager. She'll take over after Adam is done and will handle all the questions. Just a few quick housekeeping items. Everyone is muted, so if you have any questions, please use the chat icon at the bottom of your screen to type in any questions during the webinar. Both myself and Jess will monitor the questions, and Jess will facilitate them at the end after Adam is done. Finally, the slides will be sent out and will be posted on our website. So who is presenting today's webinar? Well, that would be Adam Dooley. He has done some other webinars for us and has been a great resource for the WRLA. All about Adam. Over the past 2.5 decades, Adam has developed and executed communication programs for regional, national, and North American organizations. As an expert at integrating public relations with advertising and marketing tactics, Adam's strategies build strong brand and polished corporate images. He launched Dooley PR and Marketing as Dooley Communications in 2007 after an award-winning career as a reporter, editor, and corporate communications executive. He was formerly VP of Marketing and Communications at Cambrian Credit Union. Prior to that, he helped manage communications at Asante across Canada and the United States. Adam holds an honors BA in history from the University of Saskatchewan and a master's degree in journalism from the University of Western Ontario. All right, Adam, well, that is all about you and Westman, so you can take it over.
Okay, excellent. Thanks very much, Erin, and thanks, Jess. I'm just going to share my screen. And Jess, if you want to just let me know that's the right screen up there. If it isn't, let me know and I can switch it. But thank you very much for inviting me back. You know, a couple months ago, I guess it was almost that long, when Jess reached out to me and said, hey, we'd love to have you do a piece or a webinar for our members on restoring sales and beefing up marketing. How do we get out of COVID? Like, it has just sideswiped so many industries and so many businesses. How do we get out of it? And at the time, I happened to be preparing a webinar for the World Trade Center of Winnipeg and the Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce, which I delivered about a month ago. And this is the basis of that. So so this has been received really, really well. I'm happy with that. We went and did some historical research to find out some great examples of companies that didn't just survive, didn't just get along, but really thrived, and a few that kind of took over their industries. So I think, you know, that old adage, never let a good crisis go to waste. We're going to try to channel that and give you some really positive techniques and tactics to come out of COVID. So a little bit about, there we go. A little bit more about me. I've got more than 25 years of experience starting in journalism. Have been a senior marketing exec for the last, almost 20 years now. During that time, I've been a brand strategist and brand manager. I've run some big ad campaigns for quite a few different clients and some big PR campaigns as well. So I come by my experience through a lot of frontline battles. What we're going to cover today. So we're going to briefly touch on the challenges that businesses are facing. We're going to really kind of dive in for the first part of this webinar to some recession and depression historical successes and what we can learn from them. And there's a lot we can learn from them. We'll have 3 areas of strategic review, and then I'm going to kind of do a rapid fire at the end where we have 10 high impact tactics to use today. So my hope is that you're going to be able to take from today probably more than one, but a handful of tactics that you can put to use right away. My company was founded about 13 years ago. As Erin said, we managed regional, national, international campaigns. We started as a PR boutique. We are now a full service digital marketing, social media, website, SEO agency, and we still manage reputation as well. And last slide about us, it's just some of our clients, including the WRLA, which we've been pleased to work with for about a year now. And we've worked with big companies like Ford and small companies like local funeral directors. We have quite a wide variety, including retail. Okay, this is the slide that I laughed out loud when I saw it. And I thought, this is COVID for 90% of businesses and 90% of the people who have faced it in North America, around the world. And everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. So what's your plan? Well, whatever plan you had on March the 1st is probably out the window. Whatever sales targets you had are probably completely gone, and you're working to a different plan completely now. That is just the reality. We've all been hit by this, and now we have to adapt. That's our job. So when I was first asked to prepare this webinar, it was actually about how do you restore consumer confidence? And I laughed and I said, well, that's a really tall order. How do you restore consumer confidence when, you know, the US is heading towards 20% unemployment? I think Canada is about 15. I don't know what the number is most recently, but it's high. We're spending gobs of money at a government level where, you know, we still have businesses that are closed. How do you restore consumer confidence in that kind of environment? That's not really something a marketer or an individual business can do. But I put some thought to it, and I thought, well, I can't really give you a recipe for restoring consumer confidence around Canada, around your town, around your city. But what I can do is give you some tips and techniques to really talk about your customer's relationship and your customer confidence. So that's what we're going to deal with today. One thing I want to just stress, though, is regardless of, oh, thank you very much, Aaron. I forgot all about the poll. We're going to run 2 polls during the session here today. The first, the question is up right now, so please take a moment to answer it. What have you done to your marketing spend due to COVID-19? Thank you, Aaron. So even though the economy is being sideswiped, even though the news continues to be kind of negative on the economic front, we've got to recognize that that people are still going to be purchasing goods and services. And we'll still be purchasing food from stores and restaurants. We'll still need clothes. We'll still need accountants. We'll still need entertainment. The types of those things may change. The way we consume them may change. But we've got to recognize that we're definitely still going to be buying things in vast quantities. So that's the number one thing that we have to keep in mind, that let's recognize, let's not be an ostrich and bury our heads in the sand and say nothing is wrong, but let's also recognize there's still an awful lot going right. So that's the first thing that we have to start with. And we're here today to review some strategies to help you strengthen the relationship with your customers so that the customers that you have continue shopping with you and continue spending money with you, and so that you can rebuild and maintain that confidence and that sales stream. Businesses that may thrive. You know, when I pulled this together, this is a slide that I had in the World Trade Center webinar, and right at the very top, home maintenance stores. So this is probably resonates well with this audience. Now, I know not everybody in this audience is probably doing super well, but I know that quite a few are probably seeing increases in some areas. That's what I've heard anecdotally. So I know that accountant friends of mine have been super busy, grocery stores. So there's a few places that have gotten really busy. And then I just want to dwell on online retail and delivery, because that has just skyrocketed. You know, companies like Shopify have been busier than ever setting up online stores for retail outlets of many different sizes, as people have kind of gravitated, recognized, hey, we've got to make this move now. So regardless of whether your company has been hit hard or whether you're actually busier now, as always, it's going to take hard work to succeed. And we're going to have to focus on the little things, and we have to execute really well. So in fact, perhaps now more than ever, we have to execute well. And if we do that, then we might end up to be champions like this gentleman, Usain Bolt. I recently saw a detailed breakdown of Bolt's running style. They put up on, you might have seen this on social media recently, they compared US sprinter Tyson Gay versus Usain Bolt, and it broke down the minuscule little differences between the two, including how high was their trailing foot out of the block, out of the starting block. What was the position of their hips coming out of that starting block? How soon did that first foot hit the ground? Just minuscule little differences between the two athletes. And yet those tiny details of execution at the elite level are a good reminder that championships are won in the preparation as much as on race day. And so today is one of those preparation days, and we're going to deal with some of the ways some other business champions have really succeeded in previous downturns. Let's start off with Mr. Jobs, Apple. So this is Steve Jobs, and excuse me, he returned to Apple in 1996. And if you don't remember, or if you're not old enough, 1996, Apple was not the Apple it is today, that we know today. It was a company that many people predicted would go under, and Steve Jobs came back and had to completely rebuild it. In the late 90s, we had a dot-com bubble, which was expanding, and Steve Jobs launched a couple of products. There was that big kind of glowing egg laptop or desktop computer. I think it was called the iMac, and that came out in the late 90s. But it wasn't until 2001, which coincided with the depths of the 2001-2002 tech wreck recession, that he really launched some great products. In 2001, Apple launched two groundbreaking products. The first was iTunes early in the year, and they followed it up just in time for Christmas with the iPod. And then to top it off, in 2007, as the world grew more aware of the great financial crisis that was brewing in the US subprime mortgage market, Apple launched the biggest category killer of all, the iPhone. So my moral, the moral I got from this one is never stop innovating. Don't hold back the launch of a great product or a great service for anything, including a recession. Number 2, MailChimp. MailChimp's another tech company. If you're not familiar with it, it does email marketing. It was founded in 2001. And for the big chunk of the first decade that it existed, it was focused on large corporate clients. And then in 2009, at the depth of that great financial crisis recession, the company pivoted. It pivoted because it had to. It wasn't succeeding. It was going to go under. And the owners and the founders knew that. So the executive team launched a freemium business model, going after small business, going after freelancers, going after individual retailers and the like. And within a year, its user base ballooned from 85,000 to 450,000. So the moral of the story that MailChimp tells us is spot the bigger opportunity. Sell to the market that's buying, not necessarily the market that you want. I want to segue back to the 1930s and talk about General Motors. General Motors in the 1930s really overhauled its entire business model. They were really just accelerating changes that they'd begun in the 20s, but the Depression forced the company to commit to its program completely. It cut costs to the bone by doing things like sharing the same engines and other parts across many different models. That helped them reduce inventories. It also helped them reduce their prices to reach the lower end of the market, which had limited funds to spend in the Depression. GM gained market share even as its production and profits slipped. The company had overtaken Ford in the 20s, but it was in the 1930s that it became the dominant car company. Some of the strategies that it employed forced many companies to go under at that time, and we were left at the end of that decade with the big three as we know them today. I think there was a couple that hung on for another decade or two that are now closed, but are closed in the 50s and 60s. But it was the big three at the end of the 1930s. And by the end of the decade, GM was not only the largest car company in the world, it was the largest company in the world. So their market share increased from 34% in 29 to 38% in 32. And that was the trough year of the Depression. Their profits cratered as well, but some of the things that they did, so they merged the manufacturing of the Chevy and Pontiac divisions. They combined the sales division of Buick, Oldsmobile, and Pontiac. Their chief competitor made it a little easier on them, and this is a theme that you're going to hear today. Ford was notoriously resistant to change. You might remember this, you probably heard that Ford sold cars in any color you wanted as long as it was black. Well, GM was able to satisfy customer tastes much better than Ford, and it never looked back, or at least not until 2008, and then it looked back. So the moral here is give people what they want, even if it means changing how you do things. And maybe a second moral is hunkering down to ride out a recession, not usually a hallmark of a great management team. Let's look at another great American brand, McDonald's, in the 1970s. Now, some people may not think of the 70s as an economic recessionary period, but it really was. It lurched from the OPEC crisis in the beginning of the decade to stagflation at the end of the decade. There wasn't a lot of economic growth, but what there was a lot of people, baby boomers, looking for inexpensive food options. The boomers were in their teens and 20s, and all signs lined up for McDonald's, so they pressed their advantage. They knew they had a strong brand that was right for the time, and they moved forward. In the 1970s, the company ramped up the pace of its store openings, while its chief rival, Burger King, slowed down. And McDonald's earned an enduring advantage during that decade. Sales grew from $1 billion in 1972 to more than $3 billion in 75. The stores sprung up everywhere, just about every little town across North America. And they also started branching out very aggressively internationally. They innovated during the decade. They opened up their first drive-through. They opened up Ronald McDonald House and a bunch of other things, adjusting their menu to add breakfast. So all the while, the brand was steady and strong and clearly identifiable. Everyone knows what McDonald's stands for: consistent quality, fast service, clean restaurants where the whole family can eat for a low cost. That's what McDonald's does, and it's what it is known for, and it did extremely well. It was in the 1970s where McDonald's became what it is today. So the moral here is press your advantage. And if your competitors like Burger King are slowing down, maybe you should be stepping on the accelerator. I want to look back to two more examples from the 1930s. Procter & Gamble. Now Procter & Gamble, their sales, this is the big consumer products company, soaps and whatnot. Their sales dropped 28% in 1933 alone. And the price of their stock fell more than 70% that year, or sorry, by 1933. In the 1930s, as businesses cut costs and cut marketing, a few companies did the exact opposite, and Procter & Gamble took the lead in that department. They sponsored long-running dramas on the radio. The first soap operas were born. They were born as a way to sell soap. And rumor has it that the executives of Procter & Gamble noticed that radio sales were actually soaring. Now, radio at the time was a brand new luxury item, and it was expensive to own a radio, but sales were soaring. So they realized that's where people are, that's where their customers are listening. And so that's where we need to advertise, and that's what they did. So the moral here is, how can you adjust your marketing today to fit the times? Where are the consumers listening or watching today? Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, streaming services like Netflix, Prime, Crave, Gem. They may be out of reach for smaller companies, but not for larger companies. And I think podcasts continue to show just how popular they are. Maybe that's where the Procter & Gamble of 2020 is at work today. And the other example from the same period of time is Kellogg's. Now, as the Great Depression started, there were two companies that were the undisputed leaders in packaged cereals, Kellogg's and Post. Now, Post did what was instinctive for many companies. It cut costs in the Depression, including its advertising. It slashed its advertising. Kellogg, on the other hand, doubled its ad budget and moved into radio advertising, much like Procter & Gamble did. It worked on its brands, so it invested in the brand image, introducing characters like the Snap, Crackle, and Pop characters. And by 1933, as the economy hit its lowest point, Kellogg's profits rose almost 30%, and it's been the dominant player in the industry ever since. So the moral here is, marketing works, especially when your competitors aren't doing it. So we can learn a lot from these historical examples. Times may have changed, but people haven't changed very much. The reality is that most companies are going to cut back on their marketing right now. We've seen ad spend get absolutely crushed over the last few months. It's bounced back in some places, a little bit more in the last month for sure, but it's not back to where it was yet. Rumor has it, I was reading that Google's advertising revenue in the next quarterly report is going to be absolutely savaged compared to previous quarters. It might go down for the first time ever. So it's safe to assume that many of your competitors are going to be a lot like Post instead of Kellogg. They're going to hunker down and wait things out. But we know that that's not the best way to get through this. So how do we get through it? Well, we've got our second poll question now, Erin. Perfect, thank you very much. When was the last time you reviewed your business plan, including your brand strategy and targeted customers? Thank you very much. So that is where I would start. I don't often recommend revisiting brand and business plans, but when you're faced with a major crisis, it is a perfect opportunity to just check in on base principles. So if your business has been sideswiped by this crisis, or if you're just not sure where things are going, or if you're targeting properly, or if you need to adjust the way you're going, then this is the time to take a look at it. You know, do you need to be like GM? They completely rethought their means of production to reduce costs and their target markets. Or maybe MailChimp, which abandoned its earlier plans of chasing large enterprises and retargeted, focusing on small and medium-sized companies. Or are you more like an Apple or a McDonald's that knew they had a great thing and they just pressed ahead? Or maybe more like Procter & Gamble or Kellogg's, and you can win the coming battle just with better, more aggressive marketing. I would suggest that you need to be really strategic and thoughtful about what your company's brand is. You know how everyone knows what McDonald's stands for? Ask yourself, do your customers know what your company stands for? In the same simple way. If you ask 20 of them or 100 of them what your company stood for, what would they say? And would it be consistent? The better you can be consistent in those answers. I think if you asked 100 people what McDonald's stands for, you would get probably close to 100 very similar answers. I would also suggest that you don't want to try to be all things to all people. You should definitely this should definitely get you to strategically review who your customers are. And maybe now's the time to look at the 80-20 rule. Focus on the 20% that's bringing in the 80% of the revenue. Second strategic review area, bring the value. So this is where, off the top, I said that we're going to focus on how to rebuild customer confidence through better relationships. And I think that's the best way to do that, right? You can build your sales by strengthening the relationship you have with your existing customers. And you can do that by anticipating their needs, by offering extra service, by asking them what they want and how they're feeling and what they're going to need next week or next year. You can ask for a review, but bottom line is, you know, talk to them. I remember in the 2000 to 2002 tech wreck, I was working in the financial services industry, and you know, the NASDAQ market had just crashed. A lot of the financial advisors that worked for our company at the time were basically hiding from their clients. A few of them, though, were, you know, much more progressive, and they realized now's the time I have to be talking to my customers. I have to be right there. Not surprisingly, a lot of financial advisors got washed out of the industry during that time because they just couldn't take a down period. But the better ones anticipated their customer needs, their mindset, and you can do this. You can offer more value by publishing do-it-yourself guides, publishing and offering tutorials and other product demonstrations. You can answer prospective target customer questions through case studies and blogs and videos and webinars. Offer extra service, shoot for things that don't cost, just like saying thank you a little more often or a little more creatively. You know, one of the things I would suggest that everyone can do today, if there's one piece of low-hanging fruit I wanted to offer you today, is how can you and your team surprise your customers in a nice way today? And how can you repeat that 100 times so that they feel really special, that they matter to your company? Ways to add value, I've listed a few of these already. Informative articles, remember their birthday, personalize things. Make local recommendations. So that's, people love that if you can really add extra value. Demos and samples are a little tough right now. I know things are still reopening, but with the restrictions on the number of people you can have in store or in a given location, it seems to me now is a perfect time for a VIP invitation only event for, you know, a special product demonstration or something like that. You can bring in people and really say thank you in a special way and still be on side with social distancing and other guidelines that you have to follow. Okay. The third area is marketing. So now is the worst time to cut your marketing. Cut back if needed, but don't cut it out. And remember the lessons we've already learned from Procter & Gamble and Kellogg's, that they were in a down market, but they had good products that they believed in, and they executed well on their branding and marketing. So be targeted in your advertising. Now, these days, we've got fantastic data that Kellogg's and Procter & Gamble didn't have in the 30s. You can use digital marketing to really hone and focus, target your customers extremely well. You can be present in social media, and I would say now is a time that you really have to be. You can innovate, and if that's part of your brand, then don't stop. Launch new products, launch new services. Entertain. Is TikTok the new soap opera? Some people might say yes, other people aren't comfortable with it. I would say if TikTok's not reaching your target customer, then you don't have to worry about it. But maybe Facebook is, or maybe Twitter is, or maybe YouTube is, or something like that. I would say in terms of advertising and marketing, be aggressive, but just don't be tone deaf. Okay. Now, I want to roll through 10 high impact tactics for you. I always start with your website, because a website, even with all the things that we have at our disposal as marketers and salespeople and business people today, website is still the cornerstone and the center of your marketing communications universe. And that is where you need to really brand, and target your customers. Focus on engagement. Make your website as sticky as possible. If you're not working on SEO, you should be. SEO is search engine optimization, and you can really drive your visitor traffic up if you employ some really basic SEO tactics. And I would say set up data tracking on everything so that you know what works, and then you can repeat what's working and amplify that and cast aside the stuff that's not working. Anyway, your website is absolutely key. A good shopping experience, especially if you're selling online, is vital. And I think there's the online stores that are kind of out of the box ready, as well as the more customized, are getting better and better and better. So that is definitely where I would be focusing my time and energy as the #1 priority. But also important is Google My Business. And I would say Google My Business has been a vital tool for, especially for retailers over the last 90 days. It is all the time. But if you're not familiar with Google My Business, it's that web page that you get before you get to your web page. It's the custom, or the company profile that shows up when people search your company on Google. It will provide Google reviews, but it's what people are looking for is your location. So a map to your location, your address, your store hours. Are you open today? Do you have limited hours because of COVID? Do you have any special restrictions people need to know about? All of that stuff you can put on that search engine results page, the SERP page. And every business owner has access to their Google My Business profile, and it's free. You can, if you don't know if you have it, or if you are sure you don't and you need to set it up, go to business.google.com. That's business.google.com. It's a really simple process to set up your Google My Business. Anyway, we've been experimenting as an agency with Google My Business over the last, I would say, 8 or 9 months, using it really actively with our customers, posting photos, posting specials, keeping hours up to date, encouraging Google reviews, anything that we can do to just have a presence and an updated, refreshed content on that Google My Business profile. And I can tell you that anecdotally, at least with the batch of clients we're working with, our search results are going up, our visitor traffic is going up, the number of people requesting directions to them is going up, all of those things. So I would highly recommend that you take a look at your Google My Business and make sure that it's up to date all the time, especially if your hours are changing or will be changing soon. #3, social media. I don't know if we need to dwell too much on this. It's kind of a no-brainer now, but really be present on social media. And you need to be on brand and on target, just like anywhere else. you know, social media is a big universe. There's different platforms that reach different kinds of people in different kinds of frames of mind. You can get them in different parts of the sales funnel on social media, but it's definitely where people are hanging out and spending time. You know, the stats tell us the average person is on their phone scrolling 2 to 2.5 hours a day. And that most of that is Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and the Google News page, and things like that. And if they're not there, they're playing a game on their phone or something like that. Anyway, they're on their phone an awful lot. So you need to be there too. Pay-per-click advertising is still highly, highly effective. This is the pay-per-click advertising on social media, Facebook, Instagram, so on. Also on Google search and Google's display network. And don't forget Bing. Bing is still important. It has a smaller market share than Google, but it reaches a different clientele, especially if you're using, or if you're going after older web users, and a lot of them still use Bing because it's the default Microsoft product that comes on their computers. Anyway, highly useful. The Google Display Network is the largest advertising network in the world. All those games that people are playing, they're getting ads served to them on the Google Display Network. And if they're surfing the web and looking at blogs or anything really, they're getting ads from the Google Display Network. Email and SMS or text marketing. Really, really important. Whenever somebody opts in to receive your marketing message, via like an email, use it and give it, you know, spend some time on this. They're opting in they're saying, yes, please send me your advertisements. I want to spend time reading your ads. That is gold for a marketer. So I would make sure that you are focusing on offering true value and spending time to provide email offers that truly reward those customers who have opted in. Again, needs to be on brand and on target. Make things as easy as you can for them in those channels. Here's a free thing everyone can improve on: customer service. It does not cost you a dime to be that much nicer to customers. It is an easy way to just level up the whole customer experience in store and around your brand. I would try to cultivate those special experiences, those nice surprises I mentioned before. Make things personal. Say thank you. You know, it doesn't cost anything to say thank you. And that can just lead to an awful lot of engagement and reciprocity with your customers as well. And I would say thank you and what else can we do for you? Use a customer interaction as an opportunity to improve and get their feedback. And when you do that, it gives them some warm fuzzies that they feel like they're being listened to. And it means that they're going to be that much more inclined not only to return to your store, but refer other people to it. And you can also ask, can you give us a Google review? Can you give us a Facebook review? We would really appreciate it. Anything that you can do to help support our business, we would really appreciate it. And just the mere act of asking, the way human beings, neurologies are wired, helps increase that social connection between you and your customer. And it really helps engage them as a friend as much as a customer. So they're going to come back a lot more and they'll refer people. Webinars. Well, we're sitting in and listening to webinars. You've been doing a lot of webinars with WRLA. Everybody has. They're highly effective and maybe extremely effective for your own company. I'm not sure, but could be something for you to explore as well. Number 8, there's 2 traditional marketing tactics that I didn't want to leave out that I think are going to be highly effective coming out of COVID. The first is outdoor advertising. So those billboards, especially the digital billboards, you see more and more. As things reopen, these will have a major impact. People have been hunkered down in their house for weeks or months. So they're going to notice new signage. It's just going to pop out a lot more than it ever has before, where it used to just blend into the woodwork often. And then also direct mail. I think The demographic and geographic targeting capabilities in direct mail are fantastic. They're fantastic medium for coupons and news, perfect for being personalized and for promoting VIP or special offers. So I would say direct mail is something that is worthy of looking at. Number 10, I think if you're gonna, so I was asked the other day, what's my prediction? What's the number one thing you're gonna be focusing on more than anything else over the next year or two? And the answer this year was the same as years past, the last couple of years, and that is video. Video storytelling is going to be increasingly important for businesses on all kinds of different platforms. Nothing beats it. It outranks everything else on social platforms in terms of traffic and engagement. It also drives SEO, so organic content, organic visitors to your website. It helps convert customers once they're on your website. There's a massive range of types of video that you can use, from short TikTok style videos or Instagram stories to much longer formats. Social media platforms like Facebook and Instagram love video, love it. And there's 4 types I want to just quickly run over that I'd suggest that you look at. And I've ranked them here according to budget, from cheapest to the most expensive. So as with everything, you tend to get better results the more money you're able to invest, but I've seen plenty of examples of free or nearly free video that have done great things for brands. The thing that video does better than any other medium is that it builds trust. And so the first person video, just if you can't afford a camera crew, then, open up that phone and start recording. These videos are usually kind of like a thought leader or a sales leader kind of talking about her business and how things work. They can showcase knowledge, or they can showcase new products. They can be a DIY style video as well. The rule here is just to do things consistently and all the time, and accept the fact that some videos are only going to have 10 or 20 views. Others might have hundreds, and over time, they'll be really, really effective. Explainers are the next type. So explainers, these are videos that explain your services, talk about your brand, or what makes you different. They can be super simple animated shorts, or they can be more complex, really high production numbers. It really depends on your budget and what you're trying to achieve. So explainers are terrific for when people visit your site and they want to learn what you're all about, or want to learn about a product, or how to buy something, or how to measure something, or whatever. Documentaries. These are becoming much more popular, and this can be a short style or a longer style. They can follow your brand with a camera. You might want to show a product launch or a store opening, a behind the scenes kind of look, or maybe you just want to show how your purchase decisions come together, or maybe a customer success story using your products and your guidance. And then at the top of the budget pile are scripted videos. And I think you're going to see more and more of this kind of thing in the future, where companies are filming their own kind of mini TV shows. These can be part fiction or part non-fiction or documentary. They can be like a talk show or little mini dramas or comedies that sell your brand in a totally unique way. And these are, I think you'll typically see them as kind of serialized. So maybe 10 short episodes posted on social media, that sort of thing. 10 episodes of how I learned to love my customers, or whatever you wanted to call it. Be warned though, good video like that, it tends to mean require really good storytelling, which tends to up costs. And it also means setting up and resolving conflict like any good story. And that can make a brand feel uncomfortable. I have a +1. I didn't want to make a list of 11, so I just have a +1. Podcasts. Podcasts are a fantastic way to get your story out. But before you start your own, because there are so many out there, consider doing guest spots on established podcasts. Figure out who's reaching your clientele, even if it's one small niche of your clientele, and reach out and see if you can get an interview on one of those podcasts. And you'd be shocked at how many people are listening to podcasts regularly. It is a still fast growing medium. And that is my quick run through on all these tactics that you can use. So I have a little screen up here that I wanted to kind of slow down as we get into questions at the end here. And I wanted to remind people that we can't control COVID. It is a virus that is out there. We can't control other people, but there are things that we can control. And you determine your own reaction to a crisis. So I would say it's good to ignore the negativity, focus on what you are doing well, what you can do better, and really master yourself. And those are good lessons for all the time. We're going to get through this and business will slowly return to normal. And I would say when it comes back into normality and we look back on this in a couple of years, we're going to look back and industries will have changed. And I think you're going to see, you know, maybe not in the auto industry, but in other industries, a GM will have come up and become dominant. A MailChimp will have taken over another, you know, part of the tech world, or a McDonald's will have arisen, or an Apple has launched a killer product. And that could be your company. It really depends on how you approach the next few months. And that is all I had in my prepared remarks. Jess, I think.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Adam. Yeah, actually we did. We got quite a few questions while we were chatting. So this is a great question that just came through. What tactics do you suggest using when people in your company object to spending marketing dollars? You've used a lot of big name brands in terms of, you know, in recessions and how they've been successful. So is there any tips at more of a local basis, or just in general, what tactics do you recommend for the objectors?
Well, you know, you can bring those historical examples. Those are really effective because that's just pure data, right? That is a concrete example of companies that were in terrible situations. The Great Depression was far worse than what we're facing right now. And the companies that had the courage to really believe in their brand and invest in that brand and push it forward did extremely well. And you know, I think there's, you know, I guess one of the other things you can ask is, if you ran negative ads about your company, would they hurt you? That was one question that I remember years and years ago, my first agency job, a client said, I don't really think advertising works. I don't really want to do billboards. And my boss at the time said, okay, well, why don't we put a billboard that says your company offers terrible service and it's just a terrible place to do business. Well, why would I want to do that? That would be terrible. It would wreck my company. Oh, well, so advertising doesn't work. Well, advertising does work. It works extremely well.
That's a good example.
and so today we've got better tools than ever that allow you to limit what you're spending on really high value targets with digital marketing, especially. So I would say maybe one other thing I'll just offer is start small. You're able to start small and target and refine, especially in the digital space, doing A/B tests. You know, spend $500 or $1,000 on a smaller test, and if it's working, then you can amplify it. And if it doesn't work, you can go back to the drawing board, but you're not out too much money.
That's great. This actually is a great lead into the next question we had, which is, you know, in relation to not stopping advertising and perhaps investing advertising online. You mentioned pay-per-click and other options. How much should somebody start spending with? How much up to, or how would they strategize on that?
Yeah, that's the kind of question. How long is a piece of string? It's really hard to estimate. Every company's got their own formula of how much they want to invest in marketing. So the way we usually do it is we have tools, especially in the digital space, that can compare and make recommendations based on industry averages. So I know, for example, in the city of Winnipeg, an effective pay-per-click ad campaign on Google, Facebook, Instagram, Bing for a medium-sized law firm, you're spending somewhere between $1,500 and $2,500 a month, right? Okay. That's a tool that we have that we can use. So that's a tool called WordStream, but there's others out there that can also help you estimate things.
So WordStream is a product that anybody can access to try and estimate? Oh, okay, great.
Well, you can, it's a software package, so it costs.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Just costs money.
And if you're working with an agency now, they probably have access to some of those tools. But if you don't have access to those tools, I would say, allocate what you can afford today, what you can afford to test with. And that's how we always start a digital campaign. Let's test the creative, see if it's working. And if it's working, we can amplify it. And if it's not working, we can refine it and change it. And that's the wonderful thing about digital stuff, is that the data is omnipresent, it's super accurate, and it allows you to change on a dime.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. We had another question with regards to your comments on video storytelling being the next, or is not the next big thing, but is still very impactful right now. What kind of video length are we talking about when it comes to people's attention spans, and where do you suggest posting these videos?
So it depends. It's a terrible way to answer it, but I would say, so video length, you in a lot of the social platforms, you want nice and short videos. There's a reason why Instagram limits videos to, I think, 1 minute still. So it's because it's partly probably bandwidth issue for them, but it's also because they know what's being viewed. And I know from our experience, even our most successful videos, usually people are only watching the first 20, 30, 45 seconds, and there'll always be some who will watch to the end, but you're going to lose people the longer it goes. So I would say in social media you can do shorter stuff. If you're on your website, or if it's something that it's more of a DIY or an explainer type video, then you can go longer, because people come there for that information. They want it. They're likely to stay to the end.
So then, going back to some of your comments on, connecting with your clients or your customers, making them feel special, how often do you think that marketing emails should be, or direct marketing emails or contact to clients should be going out? Is it once a week? I mean, I know I get some emails 3 times a day from some people I've signed up from. Yeah. What, in these times, what do you think is a good measure?
I think a lot of retail stores are on a good cadence of about once a week, that weekly flyer kind of thing. I think that's a good measure. But one of the things that you should be giving people the option on is, if they're opting in, give them if you've got multiple email channels. So maybe you've got a weekly email. Maybe you can give people an option to opt in to only once a month, and they can choose that. You can give them different options to opt into, and that's always a good option for people, because then you let them choose rather than you choosing.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. So I do have another question, and this is actually, you mentioned about posting things on social media or surveys or publishing. Is that a way to connect and capture information from people you may have never heard from before? I know you sort of said like surveys, our members, they can keep that information, so they can keep that in their client list, right? Or they can keep it as potential contacts. Is that something that you've seen people doing when they publish things?
Yeah, absolutely. You can, it all depends on how you structure it, but if you have something on social or on your website, if you are pulling them, it can be an anonymous data, but if you wanted something that's a little bit more robust, you can invite them to provide their email address, and then that way you're capturing that data on them as well, which can be really, really effective if you want to remarket to them afterwards. But it really depends, and you always have to disclose what you're doing with it. Good privacy policy and whatnot on your website is required as well.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I had heard something about that, so I just wanted to clarify. So I have a few more questions. One question was, how often do you think we should be redoing our websites? Or is that it depends question?
Well, no, actually, so I look at it a little bit differently. The way we try to approach websites is that they should always be changing. If you just build a website and kind of set it and forget it for 2 years or 3 years or 4 years or whatever, it will get old, and it will start looking old, and then if you let it drift even further, then you're at, you know, whatever, 3, 4, 5 years, and now you're facing a massive overhaul job. So I think it's much, much better to be looking at the data, looking at what's working on your website in real time, and investing in incremental improvements every single year. And that is
it's built into your strategic plan, would you say then? Yeah.
Exactly. So you want to be using your website as a marketing tool, and that means adapting it as you go. And I think that's the key now.
Oh, that's great. And we've just one more question. And it's funny, this is a question that's come up in some of our social media class sessions. I can't be on it all the time. How can I reasonably stay connected to my customers and clients via social media?
Yeah, well, I think some people get really nervous about social media, and I totally get it. It can be a black hole for your time. I try to be disciplined. Sometimes I find myself spending far too much time on Twitter. That's my drug of choice. But I really try to limit how much time I'm on, and I use a scheduling options as much as possible when we're posting for our own company, so that I don't have to be there all the time. I can schedule posts for, you know, later this week or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. That's a good way to do it. But don't think you have to be there all the time. If you're the only person handling it and you're kind of managing it off the corner of your desk, I would encourage you to probably just limit what you're trying to do. Pick 1, maybe 2 platforms and try to do those really, really well. Don't try to do 4 or 5 platforms, because you'll be lost and it'll be so hard to do.
Give up.
Yeah, it's just too much.
Yeah.
Unless you've got a dedicated person who's looking after a bunch of stuff. And even then, one person for an active online retailer can be, you know, they can be busy on social all the time.
Yeah. Well, thank you. So I guess we'll wrap that up. That was the last of the questions. I just want to thank you, Adam, for today's presentation. It was really, really interesting. And I also want to, again, thank Greg at Westman Steel for being a sponsor of today's webinar. And I also want to let you know we had a last-minute bonus webinar coming up tomorrow with one of the companies that Adam mentioned in his session, which was we have Shopify willing to come in, and they're going to help us host getting started online and an e-commerce chat with Shopify, 12:30 to 1:30. It will be about a 25 to 30 minute presentation followed with some questions, so not a huge. Shopify is a trailblazer, and we're all learning to navigate online selling, so they're here to help provide some of the building blocks to it. And again, just a reminder, this will be sent out as a recording to everybody via email in a little bit. And again, Adam, thank you so much, and thank you, Westman Steel.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody. Bye.